Hello and welcome to the Despreneur podcast. My name is Tomas Lornavicius, I'm the founder of Despreneur, and I'll be your host. In this show, I'll connect and talk with top designers, successful entrepreneurs, and tech visionaries. The goal of this podcast is to unlock your potential and help you build a successful business and live with purpose. Hello and welcome to the Despreneur podcast with me, Tomas Lornavicius, your host, and today's guest is Tom Hunt. He's a TEDx speaker, internet entrepreneur, and founder of Virtual Valley, a platform that connects entrepreneurs and rockstar virtual assistants. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Hello, it's an absolute pleasure to be part of a blog that I've been following for around 6 months.
Oh, wow, that's cool. Thank you very much, Tom. So I'll kick things off with a simple fact that I actually couldn't find it online. You're a fellow digital nomad, but it's so hard to find this. So where are you based now?
So I'm currently based in Poland, in the fourth city of Poland that I'm going to pronounce terribly. It's called Wrocław, but that's a terrible pronunciation. Anybody Polish that's listening is probably cringing. So I've been here for 2 months, and I'll be here for 1 more month. And it's awesome. I'm having a great time.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. So why don't you publicize the fact that you are a digital nomad? I think the internet entrepreneur plays the same role, but why is that? You don't identify with the community, or there are other reasons?
Good question. And I guess when I first left the corporate world and went traveling and working online, I was aware of this community, but I felt I didn't really want to get involved because I wanted to sort of walk my own path. I didn't want to say I don't want to put that label on myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
But then after that, like 2 months later, I guess I'm really hypocritical because I fully embraced it. And I was always on the digital nomad hashtag on Twitter. Maybe that's how I found your blog originally, Thomas. I had it in my description on Twitter. I had it on my description in Instagram. I use the hashtag on Instagram because I think, I'm not sure. Maybe I met some more people from the community and they were awesome and I really like these people. I connected with them online. And then I started, or the business that I'd spent the majority of the time building got a bit more serious. And I realized that I need to attract either investors or a technical co-founder. And I didn't want to, again, I'm being stereotypical, but when I would tell people that I was in speech marks, a digital nomad, the image that they have is like sitting on the beach doing nothing. Now, I think it would be much harder to attract quality investors or a technical co-founder with that image. So I sort of completely removed that from my, really hypocritical and stereotypical, from my online presence and now sort of replaced it with internet entrepreneur. So that's why you couldn't find anything.
Oh, that's a good reason actually. And I was wondering about it, to call myself a little bit different than digital nomad, because just an idea of nomads is that you're not really committing to anything and you're not really staying anywhere, or like you're not that passionate about a place, or like if you get a job then you're really like committed to it. So that's a good strategy, I think. And what's your idea about how do investors actually see like digital nomads? Have you talked to any like potential investors?
Only 2. And when I did, I didn't mention that I was a digital nomad, probably because I was aware of this. So I positioned myself as working remotely from different cities in the world. And I think that even that may have had not a negative connotation, but they may have been slightly more apprehensive, because I think they would like the entrepreneurs that they invest in to A, be in one place, and B, be in the same place that they are. And they were in London. I wasn't in London. So I'm not 100% sure. Like I'm sure investors are very evolved and mature people that would understand your lifestyle and what you do. And if you take a look at Buffer, for example, who are an amazing company, in my opinion, they have received, I don't know how much investment, but it's in the tens of millions, and they are a fully remote team. And their founders, I don't know if they're based in San Francisco where they got their investment at the moment. So maybe it's not crucial. And maybe if you do have investors that are evolved and understand and believe you have a valuable product and you're doing something good, then it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, like that you mentioned Buffer. There's other startup Envision and like Zapier. Maybe you heard about these.
Yeah.
So these companies also have they have huge team, and it's usually distributed across the world. So so my next question is like, what actually inspired you to leave the corporate job and start traveling? What you've been doing before?
Okay, I'm going to take us back 4 years. And between 0 and 22 years of age, I don't think I'd done anything entrepreneurial. And then in this situation 4 years ago, I sat on a bus with my friend and we were wearing tights because we'd just been to a fancy dress party. And we felt good and we looked really good. So I said to my friend, we should sell these for men. And he was like, yeah, we should, but we can't do tights. We should do leggings. And this was just like a stupid idea. And usually when I'd have stupid business ideas with my friends, nothing would happen. But in this case, we actually did something about it. And a week later, we were on a trendy market in East London selling these male leggings. They were actually female leggings that we bought from eBay and drew on a male logo to people on this market for £15. And we had 8 hours on this marketplace on the 22nd of December in 2012. And try and guess how many pairs we sold.
Maybe 20.
So, we only had 18 in stock. So no, we actually sold 0 pairs. But we had a good time. So we actually decided to set up an e-commerce store, and then 3 months later, in March 2013, we actually sold our first pair of real male leggings because we designed them and got them made in China to someone that we didn't know. And the reason why I bring this story up is because you asked what inspired me to leave the corporate world, and it was that feeling of providing something of value to another person and receiving money for that was very, very addictive and extremely, not enlightening, but extremely inspiring. So from that moment, I knew that I needed to leave the corporate world because I'd had a year working in an office and it didn't resonate with me. So I then invested all of my spare time in learning online business and online marketing to enable me to leave the corporate world and live a more location independent lifestyle and build assets of my own that would support that lifestyle.
Oh wow, that's a very interesting story. I never thought that someone could really get inspired by selling leggings, but that's that's a
It's true.
very good story. I
Have
think
you ever worn leggings before, Thomas?
not really, but I like to look at the leggings on women, so maybe I should try.
Maybe you should. Where are you based right now?
I'm currently in Cambodia, but next month I'll be in Bali, so maybe.
Here's a problem with digital nomads, right? Is trying to send them things. Because I want to send you a pair of our leggings, but where do I send them to?
Yeah, that's true. I actually lost like a t-shirt. So like I won a t-shirt in one of these like online competitions. I just left a like a comment or subscribe to email.
Yeah.
And then I was staying for 2 months in Thailand, and I was like, okay, I'm staying in this hotel for 2 months. I have fixed address. Probably they can send it to me from the US. And it actually never arrived. So
Hmm.
that's pretty sad because I thought 2 months is quite a lot of time to get international package, but it didn't happen. So maybe we'll meet up in Europe and I can try these.
Yeah. Let's delay until we're closer together, and I'll send you some leggings.
Awesome. That's cool. We're gonna Instagram it and post it to Despreneur and Virtual Valley.
Yes.
All right, Tom. So you are a founder of Virtual Valley, and it's a platform for connecting virtual assistants with rockstar entrepreneurs. And recently, I had an experience, my first experience hiring like formal VA, and I didn't really know about Virtual Valley, and I just used my personal Facebook network to find like candidates, applicants, and most of them were not really trained to be VAs. And can you just tell me more about the Virtual Valley? How did the idea come up?
Yeah, sure. So we can actually jump back into the story after I sold that first pair of leggings, or we sold that first pair of leggings. I realized that I needed to build a business on my own that would replace my salary if I wanted to live the lifestyle that I wanted to live. And we actually employed a virtual assistant, someone that I knew in the Philippines, to work in the leggings business. And she was amazing, handled all customer service and admin so that we could just spend our time designing and working out how to sell the leggings, which was awesome because that's what we enjoyed doing. So as I was in the corporate world, learning about project management, learning about outsourcing as I was working for Accenture, a large outsourcing company, I thought, why don't I take this feeling or this service I have with our virtual assistant and try and help other startups in London build that for themselves. So the company that I set up that enabled me to leave the corporate world was what I like to call an outsourced service company. So I would go find startups in London, teach them or work with them to explain some of the methodologies and outsourcing knowledge I had from the corporate world, and then connect them with a virtual assistant and be sort of like the middleman. And this business was awesome. Like, we scaled to 6 clients. I had the revenue to leave the corporate world, but it wasn't scalable. Once we had those 6 clients, I was spending all my time working in their businesses and not my own. So after I left the corporate world and had this salary, I actually stopped marketing the outsourced service company and started devising a software or a marketplace that would automate a lot of the stuff I was doing. So our margin would obviously be lower, but the business would be infinitely more scalable. So enter Virtual Valley, and we've built this marketplace to basically reduce the amount of admin you have to, no, reduce the amount of time you have to spend doing admin to outsource your admin. So a problem for me was finding a virtual assistant, for example, on one of the large freelancer marketplaces took a lot of time. So I'm spending time doing admin to actually outsource my admin. So Virtual Valley's goal is to completely reduce that. So we've built this marketplace with an automated payment system and a payment escrow service and a curated database. And all of those things basically mean that an entrepreneur can come on and hire a virtual assistant in 5 minutes and 7 clicks, which is a tagline on our website, to completely reduce the amount of time you have to spend recruiting, managing, and on payroll for your virtual assistant.
Wow, that's cool. Seven clicks, right?
5 minutes and 7 clicks.
So I spent over a week, and probably I couldn't really count my clicks that I clicked on all of these applications and chatting with people and trying to come up with the interview questions. So that's very promising service, and probably if I need to hire another VA, I already know where to go.
Sure, let me know and we'll pick you out the best one.
Oh, that's cool. My next question leads from Virtual Valley, and you said that it was generating enough revenue for you to leave the corporate job. So where did you go first? What was your first destination as a traveler?
So I left the corporate world and I actually contracted with a business in London that were actually the first client of the outsourced service company. So for 3 months, I was working in their startup, like making things a bit more boring, like doing project management. But this was good because as a contractor, I had a higher daily rate and all the money was going into the business. So I had a nice sort of backlog, let's say, of cash. So if anything did go wrong, it would still be fine. So I did that. And then in May of 2015, I left London and went to Norway for their National Day on May the 17th, I think, just to meet up with some friends, and then traveled down through Europe for 3 months, spending a couple of weeks in Prague, 6 weeks in Budapest, and a month in Croatia, and a few other places along the way. Trying to work, but actually realizing that I don't think it's really, or traveling, and when I say traveling, I mean going to a new place every 2 to 3 days, is not that conducive to actually performing value creation and creative work. And I only found that during my extended period of time, for example, the 6 weeks in Budapest, was I really able to sit down and create value for other people, which I believe is ultimately how any business is going to thrive and succeed. So this is probably the one tip that I would give to anybody listening who is planning on traveling and working. What I think is more effective is to travel and then stay an extended period of time in a place to actually get work done and do those creative tasks. Travel again, and on the road, if you want, you can do the more like answer emails, do Twitter, like the less, I think, value creation tasks. But then spend another month to 2 months in the next place where you actually sit down and start doing some stuff again. Would you agree that's the productive approach?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I like that you mentioned Budapest. I stayed there for 1 month. I absolutely enjoyed it, and like the place, food, and just, affordability is just amazing. And my other question is, how do you really like design your mornings? Do you have like a daily routine you follow when you have these like short stays for a couple of days, and when you have like 2 3 months to stay in one place? Do you prefer?
I'm really glad you asked that question. I have a morning ritual that I try and do every day in every place, regardless of if I'm traveling or not. And there are a number of different stages. I'll give a really quick outline. I wake up and then I have a drink of water. I think it's really important to get hydrated first. I'll then go to the bathroom and clean my teeth. I'll then spend 10 minutes meditating using Headspace. I'd highly recommend that if anybody's interested. I will then sort of write down some goals and answer some questions. The questions are like, what did I do well yesterday? What am I excited about? What am I grateful for? And I find that the meditation, writing down the goals, and those questions really put me in like a positive space. I just feel good about life and feel good about what I'm doing. And then immediately after that, I would spend 90 minutes doing the value creation tasks that are most crucial for the success of the business. And that 90 minutes, when I'm traveling, I probably won't do the 90 minutes, but I'll still do all the stuff before. But when I'm settled in a place, I definitely do the 90 minutes. And the goal is to do the whole morning ritual and the whole 90 minutes without checking Skype, email, or phone. And it's really hard. And sometimes, or probably about 50% of the time, I don't do it. But if I do it and I go through that whole morning ritual and I do the 90 minutes, I just feel like my day I've already achieved what I need to in the day, and the rest of the day is just a breeze. And just to give people an idea of the types of tasks that would be in that 90 minutes, when we were planning the launch of the marketplace, that 90 minutes would be on like marketing strategy and also managing the developers. If like after the platform launched and we were doing a lot of guest blogging or content marketing, it would be creating a guest blog post. And so this is what I would recommend, and especially to people that are traveling, is to make sure you get that time in the morning that you devote to yourselves to put yourself in like a good mental space. Because if you're happy with yourself and your life and you have a mental clarity, that is what I believe will help you build your business more effectively.
Oh wow, I couldn't resonate more with that. I wish I heard this when I started traveling, because I wasted probably at least 3 4 months figuring out how to really get stuff done. So thank you for sharing your routine, and I'm very glad that you mentioned meditation, and I hear it probably is like a pattern now that I hear it from people who travel a lot. They say that like travel and work a lot, not just travel. If you just meet backpackers, they probably never meditate. But if you talk to productive people, to people who get stuff done, and I really admire people who just like you just adjust to a different kind of like environment, and you're like chameleon like trying to get stuff done. So what led you to meditation? Did you meditate before, or just because like all of this traveling and managing a business was too overwhelming for you?
So for the last like 4 years, have read like loads of books and done loads of online courses, watched loads of YouTube videos of people who have like the life that I would like to potentially come close to having. And I just saw a pattern in the majority of these people that I liked and who had done awesome stuff, is that they meditated. And I sort of toyed with the idea. And then in Croatia, actually, last year, my friend had started meditating and I was living with him and he was meditating every day. And it got me interested. And he just told me to download the Headspace app. And I did it once. And then pretty much every day, well, I think I missed like 5 days. I've done the 10 minutes. And I think it's really game changing. And this is my reason why I think everybody should meditate. And it's that if you can sit on your own with no external stimulus and enable yourself to feel good emotions, which you can do after, say, a week of meditation. I started to feel good after doing it. It basically means that as you walk around in the world and all of these other stimulus and these other things are trying to get your attention, to get you to like buy something or to get you to read something or to get you to do something, you become a bit more resistant to things that are maybe not that conducive to you leading the life that you want to live, because you know that without that chocolate bar or without that Facebook notification, you can feel good inside. And so that for me is the reason why I think people should meditate.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm still battling with all these notifications. I actually just recently deleted all the social media
Yeah.
networks on my phone, so I
Yes.
don't see the notifications. But I still have, like,
Yeah.
the Messenger and Instagram, because it's very hard to manage Instagram on laptop. So
What I would recommend doing, or what I've done only a couple of months ago, is just go into the settings on your iPhone and you can just turn off every notification. So you're only notified if your phone rings. It means you have to go and open the app to get these notifications. So only when you actually want to or need to do something will you go and interrupt your day. So that's what I recommend for you, Thomas, if you haven't done it already.
oh wow, that's a good tip. Thank you. So my next question would be about you just recently launched a #1 podcast on iTunes, and I read the breakdown, I think, on Unsettle, that talking about that it didn't really take that much time for you. So can you tell me the tips and tricks about really outsourcing and getting real results?
Yeah, sure. So I think there's two different things. There's creating the system to deliver the podcast, and that we'll talk about first, and then second we'll talk about the launch plan. But so talking about the system now, before I decided to launch a podcast, I was writing a guest blog post, and the title of the guest blog post was "Why You Should Not Start a Podcast: 10 Tips from 10 Top Podcasters." And so I reached out to 10 top podcasters, like some of the biggest podcasters in the world, like Andrew Warner from MixG, Chris Ducker, and I asked them why you should not start a podcast. And the most common answer was, do not start a podcast if you're not willing to be in it for the long term and to create these audio clips over a number of years. So when I was considering starting a podcast, a daily podcast that we do have, I knew that if I could not produce this daily podcast for a number of years, it would not be successful. And I also knew that if I had to do these sort of routine admin tasks every day, I would not do that, and I wouldn't be able to create the podcast every day or every weekday for a year or two. So I knew that I had to build a system, and using like my training in Accenture and project management training, I built this system now that incorporates my time, the time of my sort of managing virtual assistant, and a podcast editor. That basically means we can produce a 10-minute daily episode, and it costs Virtual Valley probably about $30 per week and just 5 hours of my time. Now, it's not the most amazingly produced and amazing podcast in the world, but it is going to get better. And I believe we're going to maintain this daily posting frequency just because we have that system in place. So what I would say is, if you are considering starting a podcast, make sure when you're doing your planning is to build a process and a system and document that. Make sure you're not doing, or make sure everything you're responsible for you would be happy to do for a year or two, and then outsource the rest. So that's the first part of what I'd like to talk about. And I talk everybody through that whole system that we've built to produce our daily podcast on the blog post that Thomas read, that we can link below on unsettle.org/how to make a podcast, I believe, but we'll put that in the link below. And now to your actual question about it not being that hard to get to #1, noteworthy. I didn't actually outsource much of the launch plan because it only really took maybe 10 hours of my time, I think, and it only needed to be done once. So I was happy to do it, and I wanted to learn how you do this anyway. And so to quickly talk you through the method, again, in that blog post, I outline exactly what we did, but it's pretty simple. In order to get into the new and noteworthy section in any category in iTunes, you just need a number of reviews, ratings, downloads, and subscribes within a 48-hour period within the first 2 months that you submit your podcast to iTunes. So you basically just need to have as many people go in, subscribe, rate, and review your podcast within a 48-hour period. So all you need to do is get your podcast in iTunes, load in up to 5 to 8 episodes. I think we had 10. We had 10 episodes because ours was smaller in iTunes when I started the launch plan. And then you need to make it as easy as possible for people to subscribe, rate, and review your podcast by creating a page on your domain that walks people through step by step with screenshots how they can do that, both on desktop and mobile. So that makes it like, even if you don't know how to use a phone or computer, you can review and rate this podcast, and then you send that link to that web page with share links for your podcast, so people can easily click and share it with their friends. Two, the maximum number of people in your network that you're happy to ask a favor from. So I think we were lucky enough that with Virtual Valley, or for the last like 26 years of my life, I've been developing relationships, I guess, with quite a lot of people that would be happy to do this. So once I had that web page and the share links ready, I just did manual outreach to probably 100 people in my network, either by email, Twitter, or Facebook, and basically got enough downloads to put us in the number one spot in business in new and noteworthy. And I'm actually going to check iTunes right now to see if we're still there. And also, one final tip that isn't in that blog post, I only realized it last week, is when you submit your podcast to iTunes, you can select not just one category, but multiple. So I just put our podcast in the business section of iTunes, and I've actually realized that I should have put it in other categories as well. So just last week or 2 weeks ago, I put our podcast in the technology and education categories, and we pretty much immediately got into the number one new and noteworthy spot in those other two categories as well. So when you are adding your podcast to iTunes, make sure you select 3 different categories. So I'm just checking now in iTunes, new and noteworthy, and yes, we're there for business. And let's check if we're there for technology. Yes, we're there for technology and education. So Thomas, for this podcast that you're launching, I am more than confident that with your network and with the reputation that Despreneur has, you can use those techniques to push you to the top. What do you think?
Oh wow, that's incredible. Thank you very much for sharing this. I'm so excited now to really like go through the launch strategy. So I kind of came up with a strategy, and most of the points that I had include just manually reaching people, but I didn't really think about making screenshots and explaining people how to rate your podcast. And I think the last tip that you didn't really include in the blog post, I think that's also very, very crucial, because you can definitely reach more people with these 3 categories.
Oh yeah, for sure. And yeah, I think that like with the podcast I think you're going to produce, I think it would fit nicely into obviously business. I think education and technology, probably the same space that we're in as well. And yeah, I'm more than confident you can get to number one. But the big question is, Thomas, do you have the system in place that's going to enable you to produce the podcast for the long term?
Yeah, that's a good question, and currently I'm still I think establishing the system, but
of course, yeah.
But I think that's a golden tip to really like make it so easy to produce it, because otherwise I failed so many times with like trying to consistently blog or like post Instagram photos or something, because consistency is one of the keys to really like making loyal fans. So I'm definitely gonna look into it.
Yeah, I think so. At the top of that blog post that we're going to link below, I actually give the example of like health people or health teachers telling you to remove all of the unhealthy food from your house, because in order to be consistent, you need to set up conditions so that it's easy as possible for you to do the right thing. And that's the same with this podcast system, is that it needs to be so easy for you personally in order to produce that podcast that you're happy to do it every week for a year. That's what we have with the 0 to 4 million podcast. Like, touch wood, we're going to keep it going for the next year or 2.
I love it. Thank you very much for revealing these techniques.
It's a pleasure.
So I'm very sensitive to your time. I don't want to keep you too long here. So one of my last questions is, so you really look to make it work, like traveling and launching these different projects. You have Virtual Valley, you have number one podcast, and is this nomadic lifestyle for everyone?
Good question. I really don't think it is. I've had a passion, I think, ever since my brother took a Euro trip around Europe. He was 18 and I was 16. I really, really wanted to travel. I think maybe it's because I looked up to my brother. I wanted to be like him, but I then replicated his trip, and then every holiday with university, I went on a big trip around the world somewhere. So I think if you don't appreciate travel, or travel doesn't energize and inspire you, which it doesn't for some people, like some people don't get excited by it, which is completely fair enough, then I don't think this digital nomad, let's say, lifestyle would work. But if you're, say, working in the office and you don't want to go in, like you don't want to work with those people, you don't want to be sat in the same space, you don't want to be sat in the same seat like all day, and you have traveled previously and you really enjoyed it, then I think, yeah, it definitely is for you, because the freedom and the experiences that you have, I think, and I'm sure you can, I'm sure you resonate with this yourself, Thomas, being a pioneer in the community. The experiences that you have and the freedom that you can feel is priceless.
Brilliant words. So thank you, Tom, for your time. And my very, very last question is, what's next for you? What's next for you, and what's next for Virtual Valley?
Yeah, so I need to like take it from like a business that's just run by me and built by freelancers to a real startup, let's say. And to do that, I need to find a technical co-founder, and then maybe we need to find an investor. So over the next week, I'm finding the technical co-founder, and then over the next year or so, we just want to grow. And the mission of the company is to give back 1 million hours of time to entrepreneurs around the world by 2018. So that's what's next, is working out how we can fulfill that mission.
That's a bold mission. I love it. Thank you very much, Tom, for your time and for sharing your experience and knowledge. I really learned a lot and enjoyed your answers. So we should definitely catch up somewhere, in Europe, in the world, and let me know if you have any requests, anything I can do. Let me know.
Sure, and I want to thank you actually for being one of the people that I know, or producing one of the podcasts that I know I would have listened to, or I am going to listen to, but I definitely would have listened to this if I was still in the corporate world. Like when I was working in the office, I was always listening to like Joe Rogan and other podcasts and other YouTube teachers. And so what I want to do is thank you, because I know a lot of people will listen to you while they're working, and they might make a decision that will have a massive impact on their lives, and it'll be partially down to the content that you're creating.
That's very flattering. Thank you very much, Tom. So see you on the other side then.
Bye.
There you have it. Thank you very much for joining me today in this episode. I hope you enjoyed and learned from it as much as I did. Thank you for today's guest. Please make sure to go to Deskpreneur, subscribe to the email list to get updates about the upcoming episodes and inspiring stories from design, technology, and entrepreneurship fields. Subscribe to the Deskpreneur podcast on the iTunes, and please leave an honest review. It really helps me to understand how I can improve and serve you better. It also helps other people to discover this podcast. I appreciate your time and feedback. Please let me know if you have any questions or suggestions. You can reach me on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. I love connecting with you. Thanks again, and bye until the next time.